You're welcome back to the conversation in New Central Television. It's time for us to switch gears into our second topic of the day. Liberia's finance minister has said President George Weah is entitled to $2,000 a day allowance during his current controversial overseas trip that includes a stop in Qatar for 9 days to watch the FIFA World Cup. Tweah did not, however, disclose the overall budget for the president's foreign travel, which began 2 weeks ago. Critics, some inside the ruling Congress for Democratic Change Party, say awarding Mr. Weah such a huge amount a day does go against his promise to reduce public spending in favor of his pro-poor agenda.
Now, Weah informed the Senate 2 weeks ago that he would be out of the country from 1st to 23rd November, including a visit to Qatar from 15 to 23 November. Now, local reports say the former footballer plans to watch his son, who was born in America, playing in the United States versus Wales match. The president's communication team has said the foreign trip was already yielding dividends for the country. Now, joining us for this conversation, we still have with us Dr. David Matsanga, is an African Affairs analyst. And later joining us, we have Akintayo Adetokunbo-Edmund, communications and rebranding expert. So, Dr. Matsanga, I can see you laughing, but I mean, what is your opinion on this take? The finance minister has defended it and said that George Weah is entitled to $2,000 daily allowance entitlement. What is so wrong with that?
First of all, George Weah is my friend, and but I am going to be very critical here. You see, the biggest problem of Africa is not knowing what to do when it is supposed to be done and how to do it. Mr. George Weah would have just said, Mr. Vice President, I'm going for a leave. And I've collected my little money. I want to see my children or my child in the United States. First of all, even the child he's talking about is not a Liberian.
Yes.
The child is an American. He's not going to bring that money to America. If America wins the World Cup, it is not coming to Liberia. It is going to United States of America. Therefore, for me, if I were George Weah, and I think I'll make a call after this, if he can pick my call today because he's being hammered too much, I want to tell him that, my dear, you should have done your own little money and gone on leave and given the Vice President the post to hold your post, and you go. Get your allowance and don't ask for anything more, because that allowance is entitlement. But then, how do you leave people dying? How do you leave people who want food? And then you go for 2 weeks. He should have just said, okay, my son, you'll go, but I'll come on the day you will play football because I want to come back. Why Liberians are so upset is the whole 2 weeks is going to be wasted by their president in absence and controlling the state from wherever he will be in Qatar or wherever he will be on the plains. So some of the things we do in Africa, if my son is playing football, I have 5 sons, 5 daughters and 3 sons. If one of them was to play football, I would not use government money if I were working. I would collect my own little money and go with it to see him and return to work. And above all, Liberians are they are right to complain, because the president of the Republic of Liberia must be always not very far away. The constitution is very clear. Who can handle? He's not sick. He hasn't said he's sick.
Now, Dr. Matsanga,
should have taken a sick leave.
Dr. Matsanga, you're someone that does a lot of international travel. You were part of the team that was Joseph Kony, the Lord Resistance, and his negotiation team. So you have an idea of what international travel entails. You also travel a lot in your own private capacity. It's said that when Mr. Weah goes on these trips, he is accompanied by a retinue of public officials, all at the expense of Liberian taxpayers. Just so you can give us an idea, just how much of a burden are these foreign trips? And are they so expensive, or ordinary people are just making noise, making a mountain out of a molehill?
On a serious note, they are very right. The ordinary people are 100% right. A president will not walk like a Matsanga with one briefcase and one laptop. The president works with security. Who is paying for this security? How much money does the security of Weah take per day? If he's taking 2,000, his security might be taking 500 per day. So if you calculate all that money, plus the risks involved, a whole president is going to have risks. So for the Liberians have a right. They are right on this one. Also, Weah came on a platform of eradicating corruption, expensive things to go away, to tighten our belts. You cannot tell people to tighten their belts when you are widening your belt. Okay. So this is something that is harassing Africa everywhere. Yes.
Okay, Dr. Matsanga, you made a very valid point, but at this point, I'd like to bring in Akintayo Adetokunbo-Edmund, the communications and rebranding expert. Now, we've talked a lot about the effects and the retinue that follows George Weah's foreign trip. But they say that no country is an island and Liberia needs investment and partnerships. And even the president communication team said that the foreign trip was already yielding dividends for the country. Now, do you not see any upside to these trips and benefits, possible benefits to the people of Liberia?
Well, I would want to say that Africa would always have problems if we continue to have leaders who don't care about the people, because how are we going to yield the benefits of somebody moving around the world to go and watch the World Cup, watch his son for about 9 days, and he's going to be spending $2,000 of taxpayers' money? People are very poor in that country, not because they don't have the resources, but because they have leaders who don't prioritize their pain points, who don't care about their needs. And we should also remember that President Weah was a footballer, not a technocrat. And that's where we have to be careful when we are trying to elect people to lead us in Africa. And I also want to tell you, yielding dividends. Well, this is somebody who has not, I remember President Weah was told by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Liberia to set up a war crimes court. It's taken him years to set up a war crimes court, and every day in Western nations courts, warlords from the Liberian Civil War are being tried and jailed. And yet back home in Liberia, you don't have a court and people are very poor. And I remember they said 71,000 counters for the census agency are on strike right now. They're not working. And there's been so many lies. The communications team for the president said the president had been counted before he traveled on his holidays abroad, because I wouldn't call it a foreign trip. He's gone on holidays. But the thing is, the officials of the agency are saying President Weah will be counted during the census. And that means after coming back to Monrovia. And the people are confused. There is lots of delays. Liberia is having problems. I think they're having a problem because they made a mistake in electing a leader who still feels is a team captain and not a world leader. That's a problem with Liberia. And I can't see anything yielding dividends for them.
Thank you, Akintayo. Now, Dr. Matsanga, the president of Liberia, George Weah, has been under a lot of heat. A lot of people are saying, this it shouldn't have gone on this trip that looks like a jamboree. Now, the president of the country is the country's #1 diplomat and chief negotiator. Let's not also forget his credentials as the only African footballer that has won the Ballon d'Or. So he would have some sort of leverage, especially in a tournament like this. You're going to have investors, captains of industries, and all of that. How do you suggest he attracts foreign direct investment next time? Because, he's already gone on this trip. What would be the best approach to this and reducing his traveling?
It would have attracted foreign investment if the boy playing football is a Liberian. If the boy shines, it's not shining on behalf of Liberia. It's shining on behalf of United States of America. So you tell me how the medal that US can get out of this football is going to help a local rubber grower in Monrovia? I don't think it does. So what he should have done, I agree, he's a diplomat. But what deals can he make when your boy is playing football for another country, a superpower that doesn't need your support? It only gives you support through the stringent measures that we have talked about. What deals are you going? It is like, you see, the question of Africa having priorities is what has killed us. We don't have priorities. Look at the one AFCON, where the man who was supposed to be the host president, Paul Biya, flew from Switzerland to open our football. And yet he doesn't live in Cameroon, he's the president, then he flew back to Switzerland. You know, and then who sponsors this football match? AFCON is sponsored by Total Oil. Total Oil has killed Africa. Total Oil has destroyed the whole of Sahel region with wars. The anthills of Savannah is Total Oil. So when you tell me that I am going to sit there to bring things to Liberia, how will Qatar give you money because your son was playing in the football match?
Okay.
Let's ask cardinal questions. No, where are you taking the money? The money is going to the United States. If the United States wins the match, with this money, maybe he will give something to his father. But he's not going to give to Liberians. And you cannot waste Liberian money that you are going there. You use your money. Some of these parents are very bad. I'm a parent. I cannot use taxpayers' money on a trip which is private.
Okay, now, Dr. Matsanga, I'd like to bring Akintayo into this because, to be fair, it's not just the late Liberia or George Weah. We've seen other presidents talk about Paul Biya. You also talk about even Nigerian presidents. It might not just be on foreign trips. It can also be for health reasons and all that. And in Kenya, William Ruto brought about something about cutting expenditures. Actually, in African countries, we talk about cutting back on government expenditures. In South Africa, we had the same issue with Cyril Ramaphosa, where we had of parliamentarian perks for the members of parliament. Now, for Liberia, it's currently in the middle of one of its worst rise and national population and housing census crisis in years, and the people are complaining. Now, Akintayo, how do we implement this cutback on government expenditures in a way that it does not affect taxpayers or the citizens?
Oh, well, like I said earlier, President Weah doesn't seem to realize the enormity of being a president. You can't give what you don't have. President Weah is not a diplomat. I would disagree that he's a diplomat. He doesn't have the personality of a diplomat. The problem is, like, how do we work on helping Liberians to cut their budget when the president is earning $2,000 a day on his trip, and his communication people and the minister Samuel Tweah, they are both justifying it. How do you help when even the leaders don't see anything wrong in it, and the people are getting poorer every day? They're getting frustrated. The 71,000 counters that's supposed to make the first digital census in Liberian history are on strike because they are disagreeing over the fees. And he sacked the acting director general and his deputy. That's talking about Wilmot Smith and Alex Williams. He sacked both of them on Monday. So a president who is clueless. I remember Nigerians used it for the former president, Jonathan. Look, it's an insult to even call Jonathan clueless when you're thinking about this one in Liberia. He thinks he's still a footballer. No disrespect to footballers. I love football. I'm looking forward to the World Cup. But it doesn't stop me from doing my work, from making the world a better place. So for me, I want to know how Liberians can be helped. I think they are just unfortunate to have a leader who doesn't know the enormity of being a president. And you look at what happened in other countries in Africa. President Ramaphosa of South Africa, even President Kufuor, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get his name now, the one in Ghana, and also Akufo-Addo, yeah. And then the top president, Julius Maada Bio, when crisis erupted back home, they were abroad and they left immediately. They had to leave what they were doing. This happened in the past 2 months. You remember there was a near coup in Sierra Leone. Madabior went back home quickly. So why is it that this guy is just holidaying around? I want a lot of Africans. I have lots of Liberian friends. I want them, when he was contesting against the former president, Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, I said, look, you can't replace a technocrat with somebody off the street who was just lucky to be skillful in football. President George Weah has no governing skills at all. We knew that. But the mistake you're all making, World Footballer of the Year, why don't you make Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi the governor of Lagos or the president of Nigeria, if that's what you're justifying it with? And that's the problem. Okay. We can't help Liberians except they help themselves and vote him out.
Thank you, Akintayo. Just before we wrap things up, Dr. Matsanga, if you can, in less than a minute. Past Liberian presidents also established a fascination with foreign trips. Like Rita said earlier, even Nigeria's president, if we begin to do the tally. So what is fueling this insatiable appetite for traveling? Why do African leaders there's a Russia-Africa summit, there's a French-Africa summit, there's a British-American summit, there's a there's a USA-Africa summit, and they're always present, even in the wake of a terrorist attack. I remember when Francois Hollande was president of France during Je suis Paris. All the African heads of states were holding hands, like this terrorist attacks don't happen on the continent. At any slightest invitation, they're quick to go out. A sitting president in Africa did go for a digital conference, a conference that was meant to be on Zoom. He traveled to the United Kingdom to attend it, to show you how bad things is. So what is fueling this insatiable appetite? Or is it because we need a lot from the West? That's why we see African presidents flying all the time.
It is bad manners. It is pure bad manners. And we have a culture of begging. We don't work, we beg. Point number two, most of these presidents go to these nations to do some other deals which are not part of the government. So I have seen, you have seen one of the presidents, the chairman of African Union, with the Secretary General of Mahamat Faki. They have never visited Tigray. They have never visited DRC Congo. They have never visited Somalia. But the chairman of African Union, the president of Senegal, was in a plane, was in Ukraine. What was he looking there? What has he known what the problem in Somalia, Al-Shabaab killing people? He has never visited the front line of Somalia. Most of these presidents, some of them go there for their personal gain.
Okay, Dr. Matsanga, our producers are telling us on the comms that we need to go. Thank you very much for your time. Always a pleasure.
Can I say one word?
They're going to find me for this after the program. So, Dr. Matsanga,
these are serious issues we're going to talk about.
Yes, we'll talk some other time. Akintayo Adetokunbo-Edmund, thank you very much for joining us on the conversation. We look forward to having you some other time. And as always, Dr. Matsanga, thanks for your time and insight.
Thank you. The conversation earlier on, we dealt with the G20 summit and, of course, the fact that Africa wants peace, wants a productive Africa. And we just finished conversations in Liberia, where the president is going on a foreign trip and the citizens are complaining that things are still going bad, and yet the president is traveling. Well, do join us again on Friday for another edition of The Conversation. I am Rita Omodia.
And I'm Gbenga Aborowa. Thanks for joining the program.